Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Hello guys, gals, and everyone with sex organs. It's me, Mariel, your hostess with the mostest, your fellow queer host with insight and stories. It is me. How's your week going? Mine is absolutely wonderful. I found a spider crawling on me while we were watching a scary movie, so it genuinely was the worst moment of my life. But the movie was really, really, really good. It's called Antebellum. It's a new movie starring Janelle Monáe. Today, I watched it yesterday, so it was actually pretty good. It was very good. But we are not a review podcast. We are a sex podcast. So welcome to the GSMC Sex Podcast. Hi. We are going to be talking about faking orgasms and the stories behind it. We've all in some way, shape, or form heard or have personally experienced faking an orgasm in some kind of way. By whatever that means to you, by moaning or by saying, oh yes, I have come, it's sad, but it's true. It's very sad. I was talking to my girlfriend over breakfast this morning and we were bouncing ideas for the podcast around, and she was just like, I got it. Faking an orgasm. And I was like, oh boy. Oh my God. I've got some stories to tell about that one. I really do. She told me that with women, she's never faked an orgasm, but with men, it would happen more often than not. And I thought, damn, why do we do this? I remember I was like 19 years old, and I was on my summer break from college. I was at this guy's house who was really into me. And I was sort of into him, but I was more into a guy being into me, if you know what I mean. I was just like really into that idea. So I guess that kept me going. So he really, really wanted to have sex with me. And at the time, I was extremely uncomfortable with penetration in that kind of way with a penis. And I was like, hey, how about an alternative? Maybe I can go down on you. How about that? You go down on me, maybe a mutual situation. And he really enjoyed that idea. So the next thing that I know, we're in his car. I thought that we were going to go to his bed, but no, that did not happen. He shared a room with another guy and didn't want him walking in. So I understood where he was coming from. To me, I like car sex, but it is not as ideal as laying in a nice bed, especially if you are getting having oral performed on you. It's really not, it's not an ideal situation in the back of the car. I will say that. Plus people can walk by, and at the time I really wasn't into that. So we were just, we're sloppily kissing, and he proceeds to perform oral on me. And when I say it was, again, the worst oral of my life, I really do not lie when I say that. That poor guy, he didn't know anything of what he was doing. Even if it hit him in the back of the head like a rock, he still wouldn't know. I really tried to get into it like really badly. He would just use his tongue in the right way for 2 seconds, really great, and then just go back to waving his tongue all around my vagina, biting it, and it was just extremely unpleasant, plus tight quarters. So I went back and forth in my mind for a second and thought, okay, we've been at this for like 20 minutes now, and I don't foresee this getting any better, so why not just fake an orgasm? Why not just do it? So I did what quite literally any woman would do, or man would do. Again, it's really anybody fakes an orgasm. Yes, women fake orgasms more than men, but really anybody does. So I started moaning louder and louder, and finally letting out those infamous words, "I'm going to come." And boy, the look on his face. I just remember this very distinctly. It was one for the books. It was like a blank stare, overconfident kind of look. Like, yeah, I told you I was gonna make you come. I told you I can make anyone come. And I thought to myself, I wonder why. I wonder how many other women have done this, not just with him, but in general, like in life. I didn't want to hurt his ego, so I faked it. All right. I'll admit it. I did it. And I also didn't want him to continue using his tongue on me. It got me nowhere. So I faked it. What I should have done was I should have guided him. I should have been honest with him. I should have told him what I didn't like and what I didn't like, and I didn't do it. And so that's on me, honestly. I didn't communicate with him better, and he gets to walk free knowing that he made me quote, quote, come, when in reality, it was the one and only time I faked it, and I felt awful about it. I really did. But it was just one of those situations where I didn't know him as well, so I didn't really feel comfortable being like, yeah, I'm gonna skedaddle. I just faked this and I'm gonna leave. You know, it's sad, but it's true. It happens to the best of us, but why? You know, why? In a study of female participants elaborating about their sex lives, 26% of women in a study say they fake an orgasm every single time they have sex. Every single time. That is mind-blowing to me. I cannot even imagine living that lie every single day, or just kind of taking it from your partner. That's awful. God, no. 58% of women aged 17 to 95, I think it was in 94, faked an orgasm at least once. So 58% have, in fact, at least once in their life, faked an orgasm. And of those 58%, 57% of those 58, and that's kind of hard to grasp, but 57% of those women that said that they have faked an orgasm said that they wanted their partners to feel successful. That's why they did it. 44% said that they wanted sex to end because they were tired. And 33% said that they didn't want their partners to feel bad. These women indicated that they found explicitly talking about sex with their partner to be embarrassing, and were honestly less likely to agree that they and their partners are able to talk about what makes sex more pleasurable for them. The youngest age bracket, women 18 to 24, were significantly more likely to say that they didn't know how to ask for what they wanted. Over half of the sample in this study, about 55.4%, indicated that they want to communicate with their partner regarding sex, but decided not to. This should not happen. We are taught, I feel like we as women, as people with female body parts, born with female body parts, or maybe have female body parts now, we are literally conditioned to believe that asking for what you want makes you greedy, or makes you feel, it makes you needy. It gives you a bad impression, you know? Like, this is so common. This happens in work, this happens in sex, this happens in relationship. I mean, like, to be able to just voice what you want, voice your opinion, by the way, voice what you want and ask directly for what you need is so damn hard. I will say that. It is so hard. And especially in a sexual relationship, of course, if you're 19, 20, 21 years old and your partner isn't doing anything great for you and you feel like it's your fault when there's a myriad of reasons why this could be happening. I mean, and we will get into that in the third segment as to how we can avoid that. But I mean, these statistics kind of speak for themselves. It's crazy to think that it happens to 58% of women, but that is 58% of women. It really is, and it's an awful statistic. Women who strongly agreed with the statement, quote, "I feel comfortable using the word clitoris," when they were significantly more likely to report higher levels of sexual satisfaction compared to those who strongly disagreed with that statement. That is a goddamn statement in and of itself. I can just imagine this poor teenage girl, or not even a teenage girl, but just like a young adult, going into her young adult life, having, intercourse with people and feeling uncomfortable saying the word labia or vagina or clitoris or anus for that matter. Like being afraid of those words like they are, like it's a sin, or like it is like the dirtiest word on this earth. Of course that they would report that they feel uncomfortable talking to their partner about what makes them feel good, because they don't even know what makes them feel good. They have no idea. They can't even grapple with the idea that your body parts are not a shameful thing. You should not be ashamed to talk about your body parts. Like, that's insane to me. Again, that goes back to education. It really does. It goes back to media. It goes back to education and the educational system of sexual health. I mean, God, it is literally the worst in all of the land. It's insane. But women who are less likely to fake orgasms are also strongly agree with the statement, "My partner and I are able to talk significantly about what makes sex more pleasurable for us." This was found in an article titled "Why Women Fake and No Longer Fake Orgasms" in an online journal called Psychology Today. So I guess this then brings us to the question, is it a straight thing? Women not being able to come because of men, is this a straight thing? No. It is a gay issue too. It is an LGBTQIA plus question. Gay men were similar to straight men in they were able to achieve orgasm 89% with their partner, which was nearly identical to the reports of lesbian women. 86% were able to come because of sexual intercourse. It's a high number, but still 14% didn't come from sex. It's a gay thing, it's a bi thing, it's a straight thing. People in general just don't want to communicate. They just don't want to communicate. They feel embarrassed. They think it's their fault. Again, I think it goes back to education. You should never feel ashamed about not having an orgasm. I mean, in a very, very traditional sense, you can answer this question yourself, and I will too. What was the most important thing for sexual intercourse in history? To make a child. What was needed to make a child? Sperm. Women didn't need to have an orgasm for sperm to be like injected inside of them. It's not how biology works. So in it's obviously completely where it stems from. I mean, the idea that you can have sex outside of marriage, that's crazy. Oh my God, such a crazy thought. The idea that you can have sex not for kids, oh my God, insane, crazy. The idea that you can come, you as a woman, or you as somebody who identifies as a woman, or you as somebody who has female sexual parts but doesn't identify as a woman, you who have those parts can come with, while being penetrated, or cannot. It's crazy talking. I mean, it's just so ugly. Those are just some of the ways women and the gays fake their orgasms. After the break, let's get into those stories, the good, bad, and yes, the ugly.
Linens and Hutch, a family-owned company who specializes in soft and cozy, high-quality, on-trend colors and patterns that never go out of style. Everything for your bed products at the best possible price. Linens and Hutch is able to do this by designing and working directly with expert manufacturers so they are able to cut out the middleman and pass the savings on to their customers, providing affordable luxury. Since receiving my sheets and comforter from Linens and Hutch, sleeping is so nice rolling around on 90 GSM microfiber, which is a down alternative, which is so soft. And for those of you with sensitive skin, it is hypoallergenic and easy to care for. It has made sleep that much more enjoyable and relaxing. I cannot wait to go home and snuggle up with my sheets with a glass of my favorite drink. So, Linens and Hutch provide fast and free shipping. They are so confident that you will love their bedding products that they offer a 100-day trial period, money-back guarantee. Linens and Hutch knows you will be so satisfied that they are offering listeners this week 60% off 4-piece sets just by going to their site, placing your order at linensandhutch.com/sex and using the code GSMC-SEX for the softest sheets ever.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back from the break. I took a little potty break, and now I'm ready to tell you about some stories about faking orgasms. It happens to the best of us, and I'm sure these stories you've heard before in different contexts because they have often come up in the same premise, honestly. The story comes from Reddit, r/sex, the Reddit group. It states, I know that r/sex tends to dislike those who fake orgasms. You're lying to your partner. They deserve to know, they say, etc. And though I believe these arguments are fair, I feel as though all the emphasis is placed on how your partner feels. No one seems to ask why people fake orgasms in the first place. I feel like this is an important thing to understand, and would kindly like to ask you to please read this. So read this to get some understanding of our side too. I lost my virginity to my current boyfriend a little over a year ago. I was a sexual person before that, masturbating every day or two, averaging 2 orgasms per session. So when I was having sex, I came every day, every time. One day, I decided I'd switch to oral birth control. We tried various condoms. None of them were comfortable with him, and he couldn't come with them on. Wow, that's gross. Our country doesn't exactly offer a wide variety of condoms either. My sex drive took a nosedive. We were long distance for about 2 months when I started taking them, and by the time we started doing it again, the birth control kicked in. I just enjoyed sex less, had less orgasms, and didn't want to do it as often. Boyfriend started initiating nearly 100% of the time, and I went from having an orgasm all of the time to half of the time. Now my boyfriend is wonderful, understanding, kind person. Love him to bits. I explained that this was because of my birth control, and he understood, but you can tell it did hurt his ego, and subconsciously it bothered him too. I don't blame him. Pornography has conditioned us to believe that everyone comes every time. Women come several times too. And if your partner doesn't react the same way, then you suck at sex. But hey, there's a million videos that show you that sex is exactly like that. Though most people realize that porn is unrealistic. It's an unrealistic presentation of sex. After being exposed to it for several years, as many people are, it's hard to let that not influence others over, the perception of sex. At the very least, subconsciously. So I sometimes fake it. I fake because after half an hour, 45 minutes of sex, my legs and vagina hurt. But he insists on going because he wants to make me come even though I said I can't. I fake it because he needs extra reassurance that I enjoyed it when he finishes before me because he feels bad. I fake it because he thinks that I'm no longer as attracted to him as I was before, since I'm not initiating/enjoying sex as much as I was before. I fake it because sex becomes much less enjoyable when I feel like I'm under pressure to have an orgasm, because these are negative consequences if I don't, hurting my significant other. He, though, through his expressions of displeasure that I cannot come, is unintentionally punishing me. But that is punishment nonetheless. It's great to care about your partner's pleasure, but please, this is not how you do it. And far too many people take this approach. For the love of God, if your partner says that they cannot come, believe them. Don't be offended. Don't pressure them. Don't take it as a personal offense, because you are making sex worse for both you and your partner. No one can truly enjoy sex when they feel like they're under pressure. See, this makes sense to me. I love the brutal honesty of it, because it's like, hey, this is how it really is. And then you have other kinds of men who are like, but is it really like that? Because I feel like you're just like hurting our ego when you fake it. There are many situations that we'll get into in the last segment where that's the reality. That is the reality, is people get violent. People get mentally abusive, physically abusive. That is the reality. When things like sex don't go, the right way, you often blame each other. And I think it's a two-way street here. I definitely think it's a two-way street. So next story was the commentary on the story we just listened to. I decided when I watched an episode of Oprah about faking orgasms at age 13 that I would never do that when I started having sex. I lost my virginity at 18. I'm 26 now, and I have faked under 5. Some dudes have gotten frustrated and said, it's hard to make me come. And then I'm like, no. Literally everybody is faking orgasms out here and flooding the market with low effort, low skill product. So you're the problem here, buddy. I actually began to wonder whether it was hard to make me come, because I know now on a deep intuitive level that I'm not the issue. I've slept with guys who make me come multiple times a night the first night that we're together, and that's because they're just better in bed. And it's usually guys who have been in long-term relationships. It's usually the guys who've been in long-term relationships that are saying this kind of stuff. Dudes with big numbers on the board are usually the worst in bed. Ooh, it's embarrassing. You can tell which ones have sex to stroke their ego and learn how to do it from porn. Anyways, don't fake it, ladies. There's no winners when we fake it. So, I feel like there's multiple sides to this. At the end, she's saying, don't fake it. Really just don't do it. There's no winners here. Don't do it. And then the other part of it is pointing out her opinion is that it's the man's fault. It is 100% the man's fault. And I feel like in particular cases like this, I feel like it's a two-way street. Their lack of communication is going on between the both of them. And I think that putting all the pressure on one person to, unless you agreed to that, then I feel like that's a little bit, that's hard to do. When you have both agreed that you are putting equal amount of presentation, equal amount of, satisfaction into achieving one person's orgasm, when you both are doing that, or when you both have the agreement that you're both going to come, or try to at least, I feel like that is a two-way street. If you're coming into this expectation knowing that somebody else is going to make you come, I feel like there can be a lot of backlash to it. It also goes on the opposite end of that sometimes it can be 100%, sometimes it can be the man's fault. I mean, if you both are understanding that he's going to try to make you come and he doesn't, to me, that's not your fault. Like, it's not your fault. And faking an orgasm is just purely something for safety. Like, you just want to have a little safety break there, that you're like, oh, I had an orgasm, loved it, thank you so much, now I'm gonna leave. I feel like there are problems with faking orgasms, as we know, but I think that where it stems from is kind of what we need to look at, the reasoning behind it. Does this person feel safe talking to their partner about, that they didn't love the sex? Does this person feel mentally manipulated? Is this person on birth control or, antidepressants? That can be a huge part of it. Like, is this person not feel comfortable with their partner even to have sex with, and it's more coerced? Like, what, there's so much to unpack there that it feels like very heavy, instead of it being like a very light, like, oh, I just faked my orgasm. It's heavy. It's a heavy topic, The last one is, in my opinion, it's hard. It's a little messed up. The backlash, of women telling men that she faked an orgasm can lead to, like I said, mental manipulation and sometimes violence, which we'll talk about in the 4th segment. But this user writes, up until my past 2 relationships, I faked every single orgasm while having sex with a man, every single time. Sometimes to protect his fragile ego, sometimes so he would hurry up and just get done with it. With my last partner, I told myself no more faking. If he can't make me come, or at least make it an enjoyable experience, I owe it to myself and the girl after me to let him know. Long story short, because of his broken ego, he cheated on me to prove there was something wrong with me. Jesus Christ. He told me about her screaming "oh" when he dumped me. But we all know that she faked it. So that's what the user wrote. That's totally messed up. Totally messed up for the guy to do that. I feel like there's all of this big, feminist energy where it's, women need to reclaim our orgasms and like all this fun stuff. And there's this reality where it is absolute mental manipulation that goes on from the male side in a heterosexual relationship, punishing her because she can't have an orgasm. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. He cheated on her because she didn't come. My God. What will happen to us? My God. Egos will be the death of us, I swear. It's so sad when a woman doesn't come, but it's even sadder when men take it out on women. That really takes the cake. Up next, after the break, let's get into ways we can avoid faking an orgasm once and for all.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sex Podcast. I am your host yet again, Mariel. I'm here. So, in the last segment, we talked about stories about women faking orgasms, backlash, why women and men fake orgasm. Now let's talk about how we can avoid this. What are the steps that we can do to avoid this situation and make it better? Because it is about both parties. Both men and women in this situation are held accountable because they're both having sex. Sex is between two people. When it's not in a threesome, then it's three people. So if a woman or a man is faking an orgasm, there is a lack of trust between the two of you completely. There is no respect between the two, and there's also no trust. And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. It's something that needs to be worked on. Number one thing is communication. Period. If I've learned anything through my short years on this earth, being a sexually active individual, it is that you absolutely need to communicate with your partner. Tell them what they're doing right when it happens. Tell them what they're doing wrong when it happens. Tell them what you like, tell them what you don't like. Let them know verbally by saying yes, right there, or ow, that hurts, let's try something else. Communicate even after the fact what went wrong if you're comfortable with it. If it is a one-night stand and they're, doing things that are wrong, I would absolutely let them know, point blank. If you're scared of what people will think, who cares? You'll never see them again. Be as blunt and as honest as you want. If it's your partner and you feel comfortable being blunt and honest, do it. If not, tell them right then and there what they're doing right and guide them into what they're doing wrong. Guide them through it. The next thing is to help stop faking an orgasm is time and patience. Ask your partner to be patient with you, as it takes a long time for you to come, or it's hard in general for you to do that with anyone. If they get offended, leave. Again, period, point blank, leave. I have an absolute bullshit reader in my mind. When I talk to people and I know they're full of shit, it just goes off. My little meter goes off. That person is completely full of shit if they get upset at you for doing this. But take your time and get to know yourself. Take your time with yourself, but also get to know yourself. Allow yourself the time and the space to be there and to have sex with that person. Be patient with your mind as well. Sometimes when it takes longer for us to come, we get in our heads and think that the person is getting bored or that they just hate it. Just take your time. Take the time for yourself and you'll be okay. Be patient with yourself. No one's judging you. No one is here to judge you. At the end of the day, sex is sex. It doesn't have to be to reach an orgasm, but that can also be your prerogative. So if it is, just be patient. It's not a race. It's really not a race. Next one. If you feel yourself losing interest but still want to keep going, pull out the toys. Pull out any toys, anything that would make you feel more comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, if this person feels like there's something wrong with it, leave. Just leave. Don't even leave. You can talk about it with them, but leave. It is what makes you feel comfortable. And if you want to dive into why it makes them feel uncomfortable, go ahead. Absolutely. But bottom line is that it's what makes you feel comfortable. And if you are taking control over your own orgasm, do what makes you feel comfortable. The next one, figure out what is the cause. According to bustle.com in their article, 11 ways to have a better orgasm without faking it, they state, for instance, antidepressants can make orgasming difficult. SSRIs, which are antidepressants, limit production of dopamine, and the neurotransmitter that helps you feel pleasure. However, according to Psychology Today, medication isn't necessarily a death sentence for your sex life. Talk to your doctor about finding a medication that allows you to manage your depression and experience the pleasure you crave. If the issue is psychological, maybe something in your past that makes letting go during sex especially hard, it can be useful to see a psychologist. A sex coach can also be incredibly helpful and can give you and your partner exercises to increase your pleasure. Just make sure that the sex coach is board certified with the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. Yet another option is to see a pelvic floor therapist. Dr. Lauren Steiker, associate professor of the gynecology of Northwestern University, told Refinery 29 that visiting one of these experts is like seeing a professional trainer on your pelvis. The therapist can diagnose problems relating to the pelvis, including the inability to orgasm, and help you strengthen your pelvic floor. Think of it this way. If you couldn't ride your bike anymore because of a knee problem, you see a physical therapist. Same thing goes for sex and orgasms. It's very true. I mean, if you feel like there's something, I remember like talking with my friend, a few years back when we were really starting to like, get into having sex on a regular basis with people. She would complain to me that sex was always so painful. It was always not just, I mean, it was obviously a chore because it was painful, but even when she was enjoying it, she was in pain. So she decided to go to the gynecologist, and the gynecologist was like, okay, we have to figure out what's going on deeper, because it wasn't that it was an abnormal thing, because it happens to women. It's just not as common. So when you are developing as a woman, and then you eventually start having sex and you break your hymen, sometimes it doesn't always break. Sometimes it really doesn't, just stays in put, and can cause problems if it isn't removed, like painful sex, like bleeding, like just a lot of problems. Basically, like if that is the case, it needs to be surgically removed, which can happen for women. It's an absolutely, it is a problem. In addition, endometriosis, which is things that not a lot of women, not a lot of men know about, can cause extreme pain, or this extreme like tingling sensation in your vagina, and it virtually makes sex extremely painful. Just anything like a small finger, or like the smallest vibrator, or even a dilator is like the most painful thing. So there's so many things that can make orgasming painful, or to achieve an orgasm painful, but also another reason for faking it. I mean, just see what the bottom line is, see what is causing this. The next thing, oddly enough, is breathing. Breathe. Just breathing. Rhythmic breathing helps you focus on pleasure that you're about to experience rather than outside stressors. When your mind wanders, you can bring yourself back to the center about what's going on in the moment. It shouldn't, I remember it's kind of like being in yoga class, I remember being in yoga, and they would always say like, okay, bring your mind to the center. Let's clear our mind. And my mind would be thinking about all the things I need to do that day. There was no blank mind here. And that's kind of why I stopped going to yoga, was because I couldn't clear my mind. I couldn't free myself of that, ability to relax, just to relax my mind. And sometimes that happens during sex as well. Your mind goes a million different places in a million different ways, and sometimes insecurities come out, and that is 100% why the inability to come, why that happens. One of the people that I was in a past relationship, it was virtually impossible to make this person come. I couldn't do it. And no matter how hard I tried, no matter how many, toys I bought them, no matter how many hours I spent, it was incredibly difficult. And it was absolutely an ego blow. Absolutely. It made me feel like I was completely inadequate. And I talked with them and I'm like, what can I do to make this better? Like, what am I doing wrong? And they're like, you're doing everything right. It's just I'm in my head all the time. And I'm like, okay, so what can I do to make you not in your head? And they're like, well, it is really hard for me to just let go when I have sex. And I'm like, okay, that's a huge problem. I mean, it's not like a massive problem that cannot be fixed, but it's also, it's not on me, you know, to give that person, it's not on me to make them want to change, because at the end of the day, it's about their sexuality. It's not affecting me in a way that like I can't bear it, I can't stand it, you know. If they have trouble having sex, I mean, if they have trouble having an orgasm and also initiating sex as well, you know, then maybe that person, and they also do not want to, you know, help themselves, and they don't feel connected to you, then it could be something like you move on from the relationship. Not saying that you break up with somebody because they can't have an orgasm, but it's that thing where trust comes into play, honesty comes into play, and it can easily get deceptive into faking orgasms. And I would be lying if I said that I didn't think about, you know, ending it and breaking it off because of that reason. But if that is a situation that you find yourself in, then, and you really are not into the person, then there's, you know, just move on. You can move on with your life. But if you're interested in this person, and this person you feel like is definitely worthwhile and is faking an orgasm, but you genuinely want to get to know why this is happening, then work through it. I mean, everything has some kind of solution. You know, it might not be the best solution, but everything has some kind of solution. It can really be as simple as checking your medication. What do you do? You know, are your antidepressants causing you low sex drive? Ask your partner to be patient with you. Talking to your partner and having open communication with what is good and bad, pulling out toys, breathing. Sometimes there are outside factors that get us in our head. It sucks. I've been there. I know that my partner's been there. My ex-partner has been there. People in our lives, it happens. It absolutely happens. Sometimes the situation doesn't seem right either. Just listen to your gut. If your gut tells you aren't going to have an orgasm, talk to your partner, communicate. When we get back from the break, let's talk about the flip side of faking an orgasm, the controversial stories, the negative aspect, and the backlash from men.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back from the break. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone with sex organs, thank you for listening to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. So in the last segment, we're going to talk about the flip side of faking an orgasm, the more controversial points about faking, the violence it can cause, the backlash from men calling out women, and how men feel about the situation as well. And these are some of their stories. These are some of the stories. Here's something from the flip side. A forum on Reddit posted, girls who claim to be great at faking orgasms shouldn't be happy about it. And you can guess it was posted by a man. All right, just putting that out there for right now. So this is a Reddit post where most of men can go and bitch about how women can orgasm, and it's not men's fault. It's never man's fault. It's never their fault. This side of Reddit is interesting. Toxic, but interesting, because there's truth and also lies about the statement. I will give them that. Yes, this is just about males. It's kind of like blaming men is not the only, it should not be your only factor. Like, we should look at the other factors. It's not just one person's fault. It's both of you guys. It takes two to tango. There's two people. Is it right to blame just one person? I feel like in situations, yes, it's wrong to blame just one person. Again, unless you agreed that it was the person's sole responsibility, the other person's sole responsibility for making you come, unless you both agreed to that, then of course it's like not great. But it's both you guys' fault. Both should have the maturity to engage with each other in a meaningful conversation about what's working and what's not, period. If you're mature enough to have sex, you should be mature enough to talk about why she's faking it, why she's faking an orgasm, or why is he faking an orgasm. All that said, this one user posts, "Too many women keep blaming the men in any case, yet have the man do all the work while they're just laying on their back and expecting to be serviced. It's funny how every time a woman does an orgasm, everyone assumes it's the man who's bad at sex, but not her who's bad at sex. You think that the most basic requirement of being good at sex was satisfying your own needs, or at the very least being able to give accurate instructions to your partner who can follow it to give you an orgasm, which really shouldn't be rocket science, but many women can't do either and still put all the blame on men." Okay, so there's truth and there's lies in this post. First of all, the tone of this, insane, just crazy. Just this person went on this site and was like, "I hate women and I'm gonna tell everybody today." I really do not agree with this. I do think, however, there are some points in here that are good. I'll give this little man a +1 for this. I think, yes, expecting somebody to, provide the orgasm for you is kind of stupid. Yes, of course. It's a relationship, or it's a sexual relationship, takes two to tango, it completely understand. However, I do think that sometimes when we are having sex, when women are having sex with men, and it's a heterosexual relationship, there is this expectation that men will be the person to, to be not servicing. I don't want to say servicing, because this person said servicing and it sounds very negative. There is this expectation that men will be, the people to thrust inside of the woman, to be that person that is kind of providing that external pleasure. In that, it should be, it should be kind of good. If it's shit, you can't rub your clit and have a shitty penis encountered. You know what I'm saying? Like, the two kind of have to be balanced. It has to be equally yoked. So if the person who is entering inside of you is not good at what they're doing, it's kind of hard to get into the rhythm of, playing with toys or bringing out other things to help you achieve that orgasm. So it's kind of like, it's kind of negative to say that it's only one person's fault. I feel like sometimes it's both, but I can also understand what this person is saying is that, like, oh, damn women, they always think it's a man's fault, but it's all, I'm gonna say it. It's hard to have sex with a man and his penis game is off, and it's hard to rub your clit to that. Like, the whole thing is kind of unattractive. So I feel like from the get-go, if you're having like a good time being pleasured and you want to also pleasure yourself while it's happening, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it just cancels each other out, you know? This is hard. It's very hard to elaborate without giving you like a mental picture. Like, I wish I can give you an image of what this would look like, but instead I have to verbally explain it to you. Essentially, if he's thrusting his penis inside of you in such a fashion that hurts a lot, you really can't do much to salvage that. You know, you can tell them to slow down and stop, but if you feel uncomfortable with that, trying to rub your clit is not going to, in my experience, won't do anything to salvage that. That's just a bad time having sex. So that sucks. But so this is the other post that was commented underneath it. So this was a commentary from the person's commentary. Yes, it's a commentary and a commentary. This person saying, men are so oblivious to the consequences women face when they are honest with such things. Quote, quote, BTW, I've been faking orgasms, but I respect you enough to stop the charade and come clean. Can we work through this together and both come out it better? It's a super dangerous proposition, even violence aside. People need to learn if something is true enough to be cliche, then there's probably a reason. Perhaps explore that reason instead of attacking the victims, as if I enjoy faking orgasms. It's particularly disturbing in about 20 different ways. The onus is on men to implore rather than on women to what? Come clean? Stop doing it? Womansplain the female orgasm again? Let men down easier? Demand satisfaction? We do it because the other options are exhausting. So this was posted underneath that comment about women needing to stop faking orgasms. So it's interesting. It just basically, there's so much to be said about this, because it's like, it's clearly two people from two different sides of this, spectrum. One of them is like, man, women suck. Women suck, dude. Can't live with him, can't live without him, and then you have on this other side where it's like, man, men suck, but I do like penis, so it's like, it's very hard, because it's like they clearly are trying to defend their positions, but they're both like, oh, women suck, and then, oh, men suck, I don't know, that's really hard to diverge. So this is what was posted underneath it now. This comment was posted underneath this with this woman who had stated, men are so oblivious. There's so much to unpack here. I hope you're following. Quote, which means it's your fault. How about not starting to fake it so you don't end up in the situation where you admit to your man that you were faking it? Is it hard to understand how that would be a blow to the ego, not just because he's bad, but he apparently didn't recognize it? How is he to determine what's good if you were able to convince him for that long? I think that I'm so sorry. That shit is so funny. I think that men or individuals with male sexual parts, it is so interesting to me how they were conditioned and how they were raised to believe that we deserve that, that we deserve that kind of backlash from when we were, because we were faking an orgasm. You realize it's a cycle, right? Like, it is a cycle of this. Like, we feel, women, and individuals with women, sexual organs. It's a cycle where we feel uncomfortable with our partners, or we feel uncomfortable with ourselves in having an orgasm, so we fake it. And then with our partners, we are afraid to tell them, because we don't want it to be a blow to the ego. So we, continue on with this charade, whatever they want to say, charade, so to speak. And then they are saying that we deserve that we deserve those consequences. It's like, you got to get to the root of the problem, man. The root of the problem is lack of communication And also lack for respect for female bodies, period, point blank. Like, women go through so much shit, and on top of that, we can't even have a proper orgasm without you guys, like, you guys meaning like men or people with male sex organs, with people coming at us. Like, oh my God, it's a hard day to be a woman. But it's kind of like comments like this where it makes me believe that there are still women out there that are really afraid to talk to their partner about their orgasming needs, their own sexual desires. And maybe they don't even know their own sexual desires, because of the lack of education, because of the lack of sex positive education that was brought to them out there. That, I mean, like I said, I never learned what an orgasm from a woman looked like or was until I watched pornography. So of course you can tell that people have a pretty skewed version of what is an orgasm and how frequently it happens. So of course we're going to feel shitty about it. I mean, the cycle really goes on. Okay. Both points are wrong. Both points are a little bit right. It's just blaming one person for faking an orgasm is wrong. We feel like we know this now. So then directly underneath that post, I love this. This is a game now. Directly under that post, someone commented about this Reddit story, and by stating, quote, "I'm a guy, and from my experience, most guys don't react well to this. They're just less emotionally open about their sexual deficiencies. This happened to me back in college, and I reacted badly to it. Basically ruined a relationship out of defensiveness, insecurities, and performance anxieties that followed. Teaching can be risky. It can ruin relationships, wreak havoc on a fragile male ego, like mine at the time. And I've even known from a guy who got violent with his partner when she tried to teach him. I blame a society that teaches us, quote, quote, men, to quantify our worth in terms of sexual conquest and prowess." And there is also a lot to unpack there as well. There's some good, there's some bad. There's good as some bad. I feel like on the, he's explaining, he's like, yes, I did this. It sucks, but I did this. I made my partner feel bad, and it wreaked havoc on my ego, and it ruined my relationship. I also know somebody that got physically violent. And then he's also saying on the flip side, I blame society. I too also blame society and society's teaching. I think we got a long way to go before it's any far from perfect. We are far from perfect. But health education in that, but it's also, I'm going to say it, it's also on the individual. You as a human being and your ego are not worth it for ruining a relationship. It is not worth it to ruin a relationship, to put your ego first before somebody else's happiness and somebody else's trust and honesty. It's not at all. So having him say this, having him be very brutally honest about his life is kind of refreshing. Instead of going into the comment section and being like, man, women suck, him saying that, yes, I did this. Yes, it was awful. This and this happened, and it ruined my relationship, and it killed my ego, and we ended badly. And I know somebody that was violent because of it, because she tried to teach him. It's refreshing, and it's also terrifying. There's a good and a bad side to it. Bad because now they know. Are they changed? Have they changed? And the fact that they did it, God, that sucks even more. It's like worse knowing about it. My God. So what do we think about all this? Obviously, this is abusive from all standards. You should never force someone to have an orgasm unless they consent to this force. But why do men think it's okay to lash out for women or lash out at women when we're taught to service men? We're taught to be desired pieces, to be a place where they penetrate consensually. And it's just hard for me to side with men wholeheartedly when they don't care enough to understand where we are coming from when we say that we are scared to tell them that we didn't come. Brings up a whole other issue about sexual assault. That is a controversy about faking an orgasm. You can easily dive into this world of sexuality and, you know, kind of come out of it understanding that maybe you were sexually assaulted. You know, maybe that was a form to you of sexual assault. Then you know, talk about it, bring it up, understand it. That's completely valid. Completely valid. When you mentally remove yourself from a physically intimate moment with your partner and your partner doesn't notice or doesn't care to notice, and you just want to get it over with, and saying stop might trigger a more violent reaction, and you're scared to say stop, this is the line of sexual assault that was crossed. Period. Point blank. That is exactly what happened. So for them to kind of be like, well, why didn't you just tell us? Blah, blah, blah. Like, there's so much to unpack there. It's not just as simple as being like, I did not come. Are you satisfied with that? No, there's so much to unpack there. We have like years and years of trauma from this, you know, all the women in the world having years and years of generational trauma from telling men that they need to stop, you know. That's crazy. So it's difficult in situations where it's hostile, obviously. You feel a man or a woman would react poorly to it, which I can understand. It can be sensitive. But if you're not prepared to have this conversation, on the other flip side, if you're not prepared to have this conversation about what you need to do to help him or her come, then you need to sit down with yourself and understand what the situation is like. You know, are you in a safe environment? What is making you feel uncomfortable about this? You know, there's so much to unpack there. I hope that was a good enough explanation. I hope these stories kind of gave you some kind of understanding as to the two sides, but also the world of faking orgasms, just a little bit of it. That is all I got for you. I just really hope it gave you more to think about. I really hope it does. Subscribe to the podcast for more content, like the GSMC Facebook page, and tune in tomorrow for more episodes. I'm sure we got them up. We got episodes like almost every single day. My name is Mariel. Bad at outros. Have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.